Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, anybody that's listening, we thank you for being here. We know there's a lot going on tonight, so we're one of several. Nevertheless, I've kind of had something on my mind that I want to kind of present, but I want to we decided to make it a live chat because we'll appreciate any commentary and it'll keep it more interesting. Uh, I don't want to make this dry. It's a little bit academic, but I think it's going to be really exciting. I began to ask some questions based on, I mean, as by way of introduction, like as never ends, we can't do a big breakdown of anything to do with Scientology. We've kind of explained a little how our cult worked, but I'm kind
Sorry.
of okay. I'm kind of taking a tack of being kind of analytical about cults in general, and in terms of seeing what makes cults happen, why they do happen the way they do, and is it tomorrow you and Kelly are doing your
Yes, tomorrow.
So they're doing a little presentation. Have you
Yes.
you've told them what it is?
Yes.
Okay. So we actually watched this Holy Hell thing, and we had watched it quite a while ago, and we've watched a number of these documentaries on different cults. So our approach is kind of taking apart a number of cults to figure out what makes them tick, what makes them in common. And one angle I started looking at that I got really intrigued by was our emotional brain chemistry and how much of our own brain chemistry is involved, like allows these cults to happen and develop. And so one of the questions that I want to answer in this study is like how much of what we see happening in cults is actually explainable by way of our emotional makeup and our brain chemistry as opposed to some wahoo spiritual kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not entirely counting that out, but it's being a little bit more scientific. It's like, well, there's a lot actually in here that what I'm going to present that explains a lot of how this stuff works. So I think when Marilyn and Kelly go on tomorrow to talk about the Holy Hell cult and Chad, yeah. So we're going to see how a lot of this stuff plays in. So without uh, too much prefacing here, I'm going to jump in and talk about our emotional brain chemistry. And one thing I'll say is our human body to me is probably the most complex machine ever invented or built or created. And there's a heck of a lot that goes on in our bodies. So I'm only touching, I feel like this is maybe brain chemistry 101. We're scratching the surface. We're going to be looking at the four main chemicals that operate in our brains emotionally. So I'll glance at my notes, but I want to keep this interesting and feel free to jump in with questions. I'll start presenting some material, and if you have a question or a thought or an example, jump right in with it. So there's four main hormones that operate in our minds. And just to say, one little observation that somebody made when I was doing this research was kind of cool. It's like we have five senses with which we connect with the outside world. So those five senses bring information into our little world, but in our own heads, our emotions are what connect us with our inside world. So there's four main hormones, also called neurotransmitters, that basically are brain chemicals that transmit information around in our heads and help us feel why and how we do. So I'm going to run down these four, and there's a little acronym. We know LRH loved acronyms, so we'll use one. It's called DOSE. That's a D.O.S.E. Represents the four main hormones that operate to keep in our emotional world. The first one you've heard of, probably dopamine, and this one's known as the feel good hormone. And it's one that's very involved with rewards, especially short-term rewards. So this is the one that's responsible for a lot of addictions, addictive behavior. But it's a good chemical in the sense it motivates people to get things done. It's like you check off things on your to-do list, but it also keeps you checking your phone for likes and hits and wins on video games and things like that. And it's also responsible for helping us achieve bigger goals one little step at a time. So it's a short-term feel-good hormone that motivates us and gives us those little rewards that we like to get when we're doing things. So that's dopamine. That's the D of the dose. You want to comment on anything yet?
Oh, yeah. I did type out some of the things that you had written, and I put it in the description of this video. So I think you can just drop down and still be in the chat and still watch, I think. But if you wanted to, kind of follow along, and it's not very long, you could just kind of refer to that as well, because we haven't figured out the whole screen sharing and all that stuff yet. So I did put it in the description. So
yeah. So I see we got
dopamine.
Juliana, we got a few people joining us, Kim D. High and a few others.
Degraded Daughters of
Degraded
Dianetics.
Daughters are here, so very cool. So I'm going to do kind of a quick run through so we can get into some discussion. I took a lot more notes than I have the ability to present, but I kind of want to get this going, and we'll dig further as we go along. So we started out with dopamine. It's kind of a chemical that will kick up good feelings and give you that nice little burst of motivation to keep going on it. Say you have a big task and it breaks down to little pieces and parts. You want to keep that moving along. Like when you check things off I'm a to-do list person. I don't know about you, but I mean, if I get up in the morning, I've usually left myself a to-do list the night before. And then if I can start checking things off that, it gives you a little bit of that job satisfaction feeling. So that's good. So oxytocin, all these chemicals operate and they get used by cult leaders. I'm going to go into more of that later, but the chemicals and what they specifically do is really interesting. So oxytocin, the only thing I knew about oxytocin was when Marilyn was pregnant and we had a preemie coming along, our first daughter, Haley, and she got sort of jammed in a labor mode that was becoming quite extreme, and they gave her oxytocin. And
yeah, they call it Pitocin, but it's the same.
Oh, Pitocin, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so oxytocin is kind of known as the hug drug. And this is a big one for cults, because I realized reading about this, when we talk about love bombing and all that kind of stuff and the touchy-feely stuff, and especially this, I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to be a total spoiler here, but the Hells thing that you're going to see tomorrow, this guy, and reminds me also of Keith Raniere and other cult leaders that really go big, because what brings us into cults and makes us want to be there and makes people comfortable in a cult is very often like that feeling of acceptance, belonging, So oxytocin, the hug drug, these drugs get stimulated by certain things like dopamine. You check things off your list, you're checking your phone, you get some likes, you get hits on things. So it makes you feel good. So of course you want that. So it's addictive. Well, oxytocin, it's the social interaction, love and affection involved with touch, sex, laughter, music. And this is a more longer term relationship building drug. It's even involved in healing, deep trust. It strengthens your immune system, and it also gives you feelings of calm and safety and security. So this is a big one. When you're in a cult and you're surrounded by people and there's all this loving and everybody's hugging and they're hanging out together and there's all this social interaction, then that produces a lot of oxytocin, makes you feel really good. And it also builds trust, because it's a a drug that is involved in building relationships. So if you have somebody in your life that's giving you all this attention and affection and touch, it feels great. People they just fall for it. They fall in love with it. And so that's a big one in the whole cult building thing. People that can bring that to you, and people don't even want to leave. I mean, some of these cults, people still are in them. The Keith Raniere cult, he's still in jail, right? And there's still people that are following him.
Yeah.
And he was locked up forever, and he's a crazy guy, and he abused people terribly. People get sucked in, and it builds long-term relationships that are hard to get out of. So that's one we're going to touch on more. Let's go to number 4, the S of the dose, serotonin. And serotonin is important too, because this is one that produces job satisfaction, motivates status. Like this one gets cranked up in your body when you're feeling good about yourself, you're achieving things. It's involved with pride, loyalty, achievement, recognition, appreciation. And this is interesting, the way it says, this is the drug that motivates leaders to lead, followers to follow, and to not want to let people down. So if you're a follower, this kind of motivates you. You feel good about being a good follower, and you don't want to let down your boss or even your cult leader, your teacher. You want approval. You want to feel like you've accomplished something. So, and this also, serotonin is actually an ingredient kind of indirectly used in antidepressants. If you're low on serotonin, then you can be depressed. That's one of the side effects. So any one of these things, if you're really running low on it, can send you into a pit, kind of, into a funk. So that's an important one. So then that leaves E, endorphins. And this is my favorite one, kind of a little bit like adrenaline. But this one is kind of the one that you think of when you think of a runner's high. And in a physical sense, this one's a natural painkiller. It helps people deal with stress and discomfort, and it's released in response to pain, but also as a result of exercise. So, and being outdoors and such things like that, and it gets stimulated if you take a cold shower or cold swim. And it's funny because I sort of did a little bit of a self-analysis, like how do these things work in my life? And I'm like, yeah, we're all kind of like, we all use these or we get motivated by them because I mean, I'm one of these people too, even though I tried to fight this. You look at your computer, your phone, you're checking your Facebook. You want to see, how you're doing. If you get some likes and hits on things, you feel good about it, da, da, da. Oxytocin, I think a lot of people right now suffer from isolation, and cults kind of give you a false sense of family and involvement. Like a lot of people are sitting alone in computers and houses and, not interacting, especially during like COVID. So a lack of oxytocin is sort of like creates depression and isolation and anxiety and stuff like that. So we need to be involved with other people. We're social animals. We need that. So that's a thing that, has a place. I'm hitting a little lull. So I'll take the lull to look at some, see if anybody has a question.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I know what. You're something to say, or you want me to?
Oh no, I was just gonna read a couple comments, but go ahead.
Sure. No, go ahead.
All right. Hey. Julie says, I'm very familiar with the need for dopamine. ADHD brain has some kind of difficulty processing dopamine or something. So that's the short term.
Yeah, that's sort of the short term reward type one that, when you win things, ADHD. Yeah. I'm actually going to study this more because I'm sort of scratching the surface. I'm off to one side. I'm hiding behind comments.
I know.
I'm hiding behind comments. I actually had to do a quick redneck repair on the chair I'm sitting in because one of the legs broke off, so it's sitting on paint cans. That's why I'm sitting a little lower than normal.
The kids, if anybody was in our stream the other night, my kids were just like roughhousing, getting up and down. And yeah, my comfy chair kind of got a little bit killed. So I'm yelling at Duncan. He's in the carport with his his saw. I don't know what you call it, table saw. And he's cutting wood. And I'm like, you got 4 minutes? Come on.
I know we were scrambling to get our act together. I can't guarantee it's still together, but yeah, things are a little silly. So a couple of comments I was going to make, one of which was simply, like from my perspective, when I started researching this, I'm like, hey, I see myself in this in different places, like the dopamine thing. And I'm like, yeah, the whole oxytocin, social love, affection thing. I mean, we're a tight family. We stick up for each other. We're pretty close. The boys and Haley do music. That gives us a nice boost. I mean, it is a nice feeling. We're lucky. We're not musically talented, but these kids really got something going on. And it's really fun. We sat in to watch a lot of their gigs and hang out. And we've met tons of people just through their music that they do. So that's been a nice kind of relationship builder. And I'm like, that's a nice thing. It's a place that we fit in. The serotonin thing, it does drive you to want to do well. And, it motivates pride and achievement. So yeah, job satisfaction. I realize even with a Sea Org, like given a Scientology example, like the reason the Sea Org appealed to people, even with miserable conditions and long hours, well, even if you're doing fake make work, if you believe it's meaningful, then it will give you job satisfaction. And so you can have people getting up early in the morning, working all day long and driving themselves and not eating or sleeping that much. But there's a sense of satisfaction and camaraderie. You're in there with a bunch of stinky, dirty people not eating very well, but maybe that was kind of like camaraderie. That's friendship. The oxytocin, that was this, your needs are being met, sometimes not in a terrific way, but I think it happens with people. You're getting something out of it, or you wouldn't stay in it. You know what I mean? So the dopamine, you're doing little meaningless make work jobs, but hey, that's clicking off the dopamine. It's making you feel I got something done. I wrote a report on somebody, and I made a bunch of e-meters or some other thing. So you feel some job satisfaction, and you think you're actually serving humanity by helping clear the planet. Well, guess what? That can drive these emotional chemicals. Like, I think, this is an aside I haven't really studied into very far, but I think the human mind reasons, because I do it, we all reason things out. So the logic part, I'm not touching on the logic part of the brain. I'm only dealing with the emotional part tonight. But I think there's so many things, even in a cult or Scientology, that help release these emotional chemicals. Because if somebody tells you, like in a church, we grew up in kind of, Christianity type, different kinds of churches that are all focused on Christianity, but the whole concept of forgiveness or love or acceptance or healing or any of this stuff gives you a feeling of release. Like, wow, I was an asshole. I was a sinner. I'm a bad guy, but I just got forgiven. All my sins, everything evil, I'm forgiven. This is terrific. I'm not going to burn in hell forever. This is great. Of course you're going to feel good. That's going to release all kinds of good chemicals. You're going to feel terrific about that. Well, you know what? Scientology and a lot of cults have fakes. Like, to me, as a sort of, I don't say I'm totally a non-Christian, because that's what I grew up in and I haven't totally let go of it. But the idea is, like, to me, Scientology has some fakes. It's a fake religion. So you're sitting in, instead of going in a confessional like in a Catholic church and confessing your sins to a priest, you just sit in front of an e-meter with your hands on some cans, and some clown is interrogating you. So you have to dump all of your dirty laundry and your sins. You're basically confessing your sins to an auditor and paying a good amount of money to do it in most cases. But you're getting that feeling of relief. Like, okay, I actually confessed my stuff to somebody. Now I can walk out here feeling like I'm forgiven, or I'm released in some way. I'm getting better. I'm moving up the scale, the bridge, or whatever we're doing. So you feel like you're achieving something by moving up that bridge. Now, it's a figment of some bozo's imagination, but you feel pretty good about it because you're moving up the bridge. You're moving up in the scheme of things. So it's going to release good chemicals. You're going to feel like you're getting somewhere in life. So, there's a lot of parallels between different cults. Some of them use the same material, but so that's about that. Let me see who can I comment on. My mind just went temporarily blank, so I need another sip of my beer, obviously.
Obviously. Okay. Juliana says, Duncan, as far as I understand it, it's not always a matter of being low on a hormone, but not having enough receptors or having something to do with the reuptake.
Yeah, they have something called reuptake inhibitors to prevent your serotonin levels from dropping out. I was reading about that because that's how a lot of antidepressants work. Like, your body naturally does produce most of these chemicals at some level. And yes, a lot of people that suffer from depression or psychological problems or probably ADHD. I'm not a doctor, obviously, so I've done a little bit of a study here, enough to be able to speak a little bit. But yeah, if you've got ADHD or some of these things, if your body chemistry is out of balance, then you may need to correct for some of those things. I mean, one thing I want to talk about a little later is like what we can do about our own emotional state, because you can do a lot to keep your own emotional levels high enough to like keep you, like the HALT thing, that hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like, they tell you avoid that, because I know for me, if I'm hungry, if I'm lonely, I'm tired, those things alone can make you angry. Or for me, I don't like the heat. So if it's 90 degrees and I haven't eaten in a long time and I'm hungry, I'm going to have road rage. I'm going to be a mean, nasty, ugly guy. I'm not going to be very happy. And so all those things work together to make you weaken. They weaken you, so you're more vulnerable. And then cults, I mean, they use that against you. They starve you, they deprive you of sleep, so you weaken and you become more suggestible, is the idea. It might make you snap and go crazy, which we've seen happen, but it also can just make you more suggestible. And if you're tired and just dragging ass, after a while, you've lost your own motivation. You can lose your fight. Next thing you know, you're just going along, doing whatever somebody tells you to do because you're just too tired to fight anymore. They like that. And then you're suggestible. They can tell you how to think, what to think, da, 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 da.
Okay. Let's see. Says the ADHD brain is always looking for short-term rewards. Yeah. I don't know if I have ADHD. I might, but I'm always looking for short-term rewards. Yes.
Yeah, well, you know what they say with the dopamine? They call it a dopamine cycle, actually, and it's sort of a reward. Forget what the order of it is. I didn't bring in all my notes. Get down to the last second, but the dopamine cycle is you're seeking a reward, and even anticipating something good, like even if you're anticipating, like before I came in here, I had a bowl of ice cream. I was kind of tired. I needed a little pick me up. But anticipating a bowl of ice cream, it kind of kicks up the motivation because you're like, oh, I'm anticipating a bowl of ice cream. I'm going to go get one. So you make a nice bowl of ice cream up and you eat it. Now it rewards you. So there's this cycle of rewards. Like go after the thing that's going to make you feel better, do it, and then you get a little pick me up. And then it becomes a loop. And that's something they talk about, like addictive behavior. Dopamine is kind of the big bad one as far as addictive behavior goes because alcohol and drugs will stimulate the dopamine production and get you into the cycle. Yeah. So you anticipate you're going to feel better if you do a thing. So you do the thing, then you do feel a little better, and it's self-reinforcing. So dopamine is, if you want to call it it's a feel-good hormone, but it's also the addictive one. It's the one that gives you those little shots of feel-good that make you want to repeat behaviors. So, and it's a shorter-term, shallow thing. So you got to keep repeating it over and over to keep that cycle going. So, right. And I was going to say too, is like when I analyze myself in light of these things, then yeah, so I'd gone through dopamine, oxytocin. So serotonin, yeah, that's motivating. You want to do a good job and you want people to like and recognize you. So, I mean, in the past, I've messed up on things and screwed up jobs for people and felt really stupid and bad, and it damages your reputation and you don't feel satisfaction. So there's that drive to do a decent job. And I mean, that's usually a good thing. You know, you want people to think well of you. You want to be appreciated. And that whole thing about leadership, it's a sort of a leadership drug. Like, you know, leaders want to be appreciated and followed, and followers want to do a good job and not let the people down. Bosses want to feel recognized and respected, da, da, da. So that's that one. And the endorphin thing, I realized that's been a thing for me where my happy place and my escape is like climbing a mountain or going to the beach or swimming. I'm a little crazy because I'll be swimming in a lake in April. I never understood this by way of body chemistry, but I'll go in there when the water's 50 degrees and it almost hurts. And it's really crazy. It's like, why the hell do you do this? Well, you feel so damn good when you get out, and it's producing endorphins. Or I love climbing up mountains, and you know, there's nothing like a good runner's high. And if you haven't been in that place, it doesn't make sense to you. But if you do some extreme physical thing, or even go to the gym and have a really good workout, you'll come away from it feeling so good, and you'll relax so much later that it'll be worth the effort. It'll be worth the sweat and the pain and everything like that. And endorphins are a natural painkiller. So you can go and work out. I can work out hard and then go swim in cold water right afterward. And I'll just feel so good. It's like, because it kicks up, you know, rather than snorting cocaine or getting drunk or whatever, like drugs are sort of a cheat. They're a way to get a kick.
Take it easy on all.
But yeah, so yeah.
I don't know how much you can say all at once.
Yeah.
We're half hour in, so I think we're okay.
Okay. Yeah. You know, again, I don't want to bore anybody. I'm just hoping to intrigue people enough so this is stuff, if this stuff is interesting, because in a way I want to make this make sense in terms of the whole cult thing. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking because I am. But one thing that was interesting, I read this little definition before I came on here not too long ago, and it was really cool. It said the difference between narcissism and charisma, because I had this thought about the word charisma. I'm like, I've read the definition before, and I really wanted to know what it meant, because charisma is kind of a key thing. Like, and it has like a theological definition as charisma being like a gift of God, of some type of, you know, some particular gift or capability or, you know, leadership ability or whatever. And then the more general definition said, you know, it's that ability to attract and draw, that magnetic personality thing, something that pulls people in and makes them want to like follow you or follow your teaching or whatever. And I'm like, huh. So then the part that said, well, what's the difference between narcissism and charisma? And it was like, it kind of said like a narcissist will appear to have all those things, but over time, they're so self-obsessed that their own, eventually the facade of being charismatic and caring about other people and loving other people will crack, and their true selfish nature will come through. Well, the thing you're going to see tomorrow, if you watch Marilyn Kelly, which is going to be really cool, is exactly what happens. This guy starts out, I mean, there is a genuine charisma, and it's basically got a positive connotation, is that somebody that's loving and caring and like a leader, like a politician that, you know, a past president like Kennedy or someone that people really did admire and still do, was a guy that had the charisma, which was basically a gift, but he really cared. And the fact that a person really cares and does love you and want to see your best happen, to me, that's the gold. That's the thing that makes relationships work and everything work. So people, when they see what they think is that, it attracts them naturally. So people will want to be, you know, follow a leader that really they know cares. You know, if you feel somebody really cares about you and they're looking out for your best interests, why wouldn't you follow them? It makes sense. You know, they're a good leader. You need good leaders. So that was interesting, because this was like a regular definition, you know, just out of, you know, I Googled it, and it was saying, yeah, the narcissist will appear to have all those things and be loving and caring, but over time, you know, his real intentions come out, and the narcissistic, self-centered, self-aggrandizing behavior will come out, and the hollow shell of charisma will fall off. And while that's exactly what we've seen happen, like Raniere started out, these people seem like they have so much to offer. They're going to fix all your problems and heal you and make you feel terrific and help you grow. And in the end, you begin to hear the word grow. Don't you want to grow? Well, they're asking somebody basically to submit to being raped. Don't you want to grow? Don't you want to become a better person? And
You
you're
keep
like, what
saying
the
all those
heck?
bad words.
Sorry. It's just like, you know. But yeah, so they look the same at the beginning. And this clown that you're going to see tomorrow, yeah, he's started out looking like such a, wow, this guy's amazing. He cares about all these people. The whole love bombing thing was tremendous. And as I was saying before, like the whole idea of where does the emotion chemical thing stop and some other force, like some spiritual force, begin? And it's like, well, when you think about it, you can explain a lot of this in terms of just the body chemistry of the person appealing to and meeting needs, because most people have gone through life and they have not had all these needs met. So there's all these people wandering around that aren't really happy in their life or their job or their relationships or their own relationship with themselves, and they're looking for something, and then some guy pops up that appears to have all that. They just throw themselves at their feet, like they want all this stuff. So we're seeing in a lot of these cult leaders, they just pretended to have what everybody wanted, and people bought in. And then even later, people don't want to let go of what they think they have. Like our cult, you have this thing we call equity rescue. You've invested so much of your time in your life into a cult and into somebody's teachings and beliefs and all this stuff, and then holy crap, you don't want to let that go. You're so invested that you'll keep going. You'll just try to hang on to what's good about it, if anything, and not let go. And there's people, like I said, still following some of these clowns around that, you know, have crashed and burned in the eyes of most people. But, you know, there's people that followed them that are still following them, even though they've been exposed. So it shows you how deep this stuff can go.
Yeah, I'm going to just put one up that's recent.
Yeah.
Juliana says, if you watch the documentary Seduced, you watched that with me, right? About India?
Oh, yeah.
About India Oxenberg. She describes how Raniere convinced her that sex with him was for her growth. Seems like other cult leaders were the same. So gross. Yeah, in this case with this guy, Jaime, aka Michelle, aka Andreas, he had this practice called Shakti, which I'm sure many have heard. It's a Middle Eastern religion type phrase that is basically the transference of energy from from the leader or the guru to the follower. So in that case, we were watching Holy Hell last night. Duncan pointed out when Michelle was touching his followers and they were kind of shaking and they were falling backwards and they looked like very euphoric and really totally out of it. He's like, that looks like being slain in the spirit. I was
Same
like,
thing, yeah.
You know what? Yeah. That was a practice in both of our churches in the Assemblies of God when we were younger, before we joined Door of Hope. So this was like mainstream Pentecostal church. But yeah, they would do that, not every day, but they would do that quite a bit with being slain in the spirit. And in their eyes, it was more of like the Holy Spirit was doing it through the person that was slaying you in the spirit. But it's the same concept. It's basically you're opening yourself up for this transference of energy. And I really love this study. I want to study it some more, because I always thought that as a kid and even as an adult, that those feelings that you were feeling were spiritual, were God, were, God speaking to you. And I'm not saying that it never is. I'm not saying that I'm not spiritual at all or that God can't speak to you, but those actual feelings I thought were actually God. So this is just a very interesting study for me, because I never even considered the physiological and the emotional effects of all this. So
yeah. So what else was I gonna say? Yeah, I was kind of thinking like our approach, not being in Scientology and having studied a certain amount of this stuff, we want to learn more. So part of our goal, we came out of our cult quite a few years ago now.
16 years.
16
this past
years.
May 9th. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been out of it a while. So in order to heal and recover from that experience, we literally took years to recover enough to even think for ourselves and begin to rebuild our lives and get involved in local stuff like the town and the school, and kind of break out of this cloistered up, cult oriented, isolated mentality. So we did slowly get involved, but then at some point we really realized we needed to study what happened to us. Why did we get sucked in? How do we avoid doing this again? We did get involved in like the local church, and they were nice people, and most of them, again, we were just looking for a better life and to have a social life and all. It wasn't all bad, but as we went further in, Waco and Jim Jones and a bunch of crazy stuff like that, we started studying like these guys are crazy, but they sucked a ton of people in. So sort of our emphasis became, well, how do we become cult proof? We need to recover, and we need to make bloody sure this isn't going to happen again. So part of our emphasis again was like looking at a bunch of different cults, including Scientology and these others, saying, well, what's going on with these cults and how do they operate and why? And then I guess for me too is like, I'm not entirely done looking and searching. I'm on the spirituality little part of Reddit, like a subreddit. I search on that and I find some interesting stuff. There's all kinds of people, from the most whacked out, crazy people, Wahoo, Xenu, Nunu people with all kinds of crazy ideas, to more down to earth, well, what's the truth kind of people, which is more like where I'm at. So part of my thing is like, well, where do we go from here? So as ex-cult members and people that want to stay out of cults, I kind of realize I'm more of like, it's funny, I started looking up possible names for my YouTube channel, and I looked up this thing called Free as an Eagle, and I Googled it, and it turns out it was a racehorse back in 2015. Free as an Eagle. I'm like, I like that.
You like eagles?
I like eagles. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
spirit animal, if I'm going to have one, because I love, what that represents. But it represents freedom from oppression and control and, mind control and all this kind of crap. So I realize that's a big part of, like, I love New Hampshire and the whole live free or die mentality. Even though some people think that's morbid, that's kind of my attitude toward life. Live free or die. If you're going to be in a damn cult and can't think for yourself, or you're not free, that's bad. So, so that's kind of where I'm coming from. We kind of want to be free. We don't want to be controlled by cults or anybody else. We like critical thinking. We want to be free to think for ourselves, do what we want to do, and help other people achieve the same. So that's kind of, in general, like we're anti-cult because we want to be free and able to live our lives the way we want to. So that's that. Denver Steve-O is in there.
Mine is a hipmunk. Is we a chipmunk?
A hipmunk.
Eagles.
Naomi.
Hi, Naomi. And Steve-O's in the house.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to read this one. Juliana. It's for 5A, but I liked this one. Not all cult leaders are sexual perverts. Can I say all this stuff? I don't know. Most control sex to some extent. The whole Satan in a little body, out 2D thing is controlling thought, behavior, and emotions, regulating sex. Yeah. So in Holy Hell, I'll just do this down. The leader there, Michelle, was engaging in all kinds of bad stuff with people that really weren't consenting. And he was, a perv, but he was telling everyone else that sex was a low state and that they shouldn't engage in it. And they were basically having to be celibate except for with him, which is really gross. And, I'll say in our case, there was a purity culture kind of thing. Our leader had been married. She's a woman. So I don't know if that makes a difference. She wasn't going around R-wording people, but she had this whole, you call it asceticism, almost like a monk-like, nun-like approach. She was brought up Catholic. She was married, had 3 kids, but her husband had cheated on her. He was an alcoholic. She had a lot of resentment towards him. She blamed him for her first ministry, just hitting the skids. And so when she started Door of Hope, she was very into the whole purity culture and, staying pure and clean. And we couldn't even really hold hands. We had to sneak to hold hands or just kiss really quick before anybody saw us, before we even got married. I've told this before. But yeah, there was a whole shame thing that was associated with it, that it was almost like a necessary thing. She, even being as pure and ascetic and clean, pure as she was awfully curious about our intimate life, And I know that, trying to remember, I think that LRH said, certain things like you don't do mission position and all this stuff. She was kind of like that. It was really weird. Yeah, she was way too into knowing about their personal life. But yeah, so it almost seems like they want to control every aspect of your life, and that's one of them. And it always seems like it's just extremes. Like either they are like a total perv, or they're like, into
like
the whole like
shakers, or really ascetic.
Yeah.
One thought I had recently that isn't exactly on that same topic but similar is, like, one thing about Scientology that seemed funny to me at first was the idea that LRH was swearing constantly and everybody's F-bombing and smoking and doing all this stuff, and even screwing around early on. And then, like, the churches we grew up in, especially the Methodist church, was all about, like, most of the people in the church seem like they're older. And when you're a kid, they're all older. But the whole idea of being pure of heart and nice, and like a lot of the Jesus type statements had to do with purity and no guileness, which I buy into in terms of honesty. But it's interesting because most churches, mainline churches, people just swearing constantly, or, bull baiting and harassing people and screaming at people is so not anything to do with the brand of Christianity that we grew up in. That's one reason I realized some of us are kind of sensitive. I mean, I grew up old school. Certain things weren't okay. So all this idea of, being extremely rude to people and swearing at people and abusing women was like, you just don't do that shit. You're not a Christian. You're going to hell if you do that stuff. So the idea that, you set up a cult and you just draw the rules. You set up rules that, like LRH, smoking is healthy. All right, whatever you say, bub. You're just going to wind up in 6 feet in the hole a lot sooner. But whatever you say, you're God, right? So you can dictate whatever you want, even though it isn't true. So that's just one difference I noticed right away. Like some of these cults, Christianity by and large, was more about being sensitive and caring about what other people thought and doing unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Whereas Scientology, you're doing things you'd never want anybody to do to you, So the one reason that some of us are more sensitive, some of the crap we've seen going on, like really? This is in the service of some type of religion or God to interrogate people and abuse them and lock them up in RPF or all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't seem compatible with the type of churches. At least our churches, you could walk in and walk out, most of them. I mean, some of them there was emotional pressure not to. There weren't bars and concertina wire, and people chasing you down in their cars. It didn't quite get that bad, but it's a bit crazy.
Yeah, Scientology is just definitely very other compared to so many cults. Some of them kind of went out with a bang, like Jim Jones, Jonestown and Heaven's Gate and stuff. But Scientology is so insidious because it keeps going and it just keeps slithering around in its ways of getting away with things. And then you've got so many other cults. I was talking to Kelly this morning about some of the yoga meditation type cults, and I was just making an observation that there are so many of them out there that are unhealthy. I'm not saying all of them are bad, not the groups. I don't mean cults. Cults are bad, but most cults are bad. But what I'm talking about is the fact that, like with Buddha Field, it was actually chronicled so much because Will, I forgot his last name, was an amazing cinematographer, and he was basically chronicling everything. And so many narcissists love to have everything filmed, like Keith Raniere.
Yeah.
Yep. So those are the ones that make great documentaries because there's so much footage. But there are some, unfortunately, I'm willing to bet there's thousands of them like that.
All they take, you realize every cult starts with one person. And all they have to do is be one of these narcissists that can mask their intentions. Like this Holy Hell guy had a pretty checkered past, but people, when you join a cult, you don't know how many people that join cults that get sucked in by them really research the history of the person leading the cult and see what kind of background they had, because if they did, they'd probably run like hell in a lot of cases. But like that definition that talked about the difference between narcissism and charisma, I'm like, yeah, the charisma of a good leader is real. It's genuine. It's a real thing. But when you get fake charisma surrounding a narcissistic person, well, they'll draw people in, and that thing said, yeah, eventually, they won't be able to hide their true intentions. They'll, like this guy, it's almost like the peeling of the onion with this crazy Holy Hell guy, because over time you began to see all these ugly layers of his personality emerging. And by then people were drawn into the point where they were like the pan of frogs. They were like, some of them even got freaked out and they wanted to leave, and some did leave. A lot of them did leave, but the guy kept going and a lot of people stayed in, and they were just so already drawn in by this guy that it was almost like they were too drawn in to want to leave, and they bought in enough or had enough of an emotional feed that satisfied them to stay in. And even though people actually eventually more or less kicked this guy out and he moved to a different location and started all over, same exact thing. And I'm like, shit. And then so here's a side on that is Scientology. Look at Scientology. You had LRH. So he was the narcissistic guy that drew everybody in. And guess what happened? People die even if they don't think they're ever going to. And guess what? Miscavige gave a rebirth to that whole freaking organization. If it was just one leader, LRH, and he died and the whole thing dissolved like a lot of cults, then it would have gone away. But no, Miscavige saw the opportunity to take over the established narcissistic cult, and he just subbed in as the reincarnate LRH. So he kept the thing going a whole nother generation. I'm like, holy crap, that's exactly what happened. He saw an opportunity and he became twice the son of hell that LRH was. He wasn't even a nice guy. Like LRH at least started out, he was deceiving people and stealing their lives, but he had a nicer personality, it seems like, from my observation point, where Miscavige is a mean, nasty, ugly little son of a bitch. And he doesn't really care about anybody. And it's kind of obvious, but so many people are already taken in. He just basically got on board something that was already had set sail, so he could just ride on the coattails of LRH as long as he can get away with it. And, eventually he'll get shut down, but it's taken a hell of a fight to bring that down, It's crazy. And hopefully he won't be replaced by anybody. I've seen comments here suggesting that possibility.
Yeah.
Let's hope that does not happen.
Yeah. I can put up some comments on that. Mandy, hey Mandy, how you doing? Hi, correct me if I'm wrong, but Scientology doesn't believe in a God. They believe in tech. That's different if you don't have a higher power to believe in. Instead, you have a belief in a space navy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scientology is believe in a God. Right. I venture to say they did kind of worship LRH from what I have heard. But yeah, you're right. They don't believe in that. They said that like they're their own gods, or they're not Satans. They're Thetans.
It might as well be,
They're
right?
Satans. Yeah. CEO Biff, hey. I think Scientology really exploits the high strangeness to gaslight the X community in general, and the indecent Scientologists in particular. The high strangeness to gaslight. Yeah. Yeah, they're very elitist. Like it's funny how so many cults think that like they're the only way, they have the way, and they just have this lofty kind of holier than thou look at things, and it it takes a long time. I think, at least in our case, it took a long time to deprogram that out of our heads. It was that we fled mostly from the abuses, but just trying to get all of that crazy thinking and doctrine out of our heads took a long time.
Yeah.
Really.
And even with Scientology, like I try to think of like what would I find believable about it? And I'm like, well, I think people bought into I'm thinking, yeah, the auditing thing. Like obviously there's no God there. So you're believing like in a fake scientific God. And I'm like, well, what could be good about that? Well, you basically have to go with the premise. Like I'm a person that believes that we all retain our individuality if there's an afterlife and a heaven. Because to me, like some people actually like the idea of dissolving into nothingness and being reabsorbed into the universe. Like, what the hell good is that? I didn't go through all the trouble I went through in this life and learning all I can to live this life to dissolve into nothingness. That's pointless. And becoming one with the consciousness and all this. Some people buy into that. I guess I shouldn't judge it. Like some people like to get on drugs and just float off into Neverland. I don't know. I spend enough time feeling dopey and disconnected. I don't really like drugs that make me feel that way. I already feel that way too much. So I'd rather feel sharp and clear if I can. But so the idea with Scientology that seemed almost reasonable to me was the concept of, well, so if this auditing thing actually worked, then maybe you could clarify your own thinking and dump all your bad thinking and clear your mind and become a pure person and all this kind of stuff, which would have to happen at an individual level. Like it's obvious to me, not everybody can possibly be straightened out or cleared or saved or even wants to be. So it's sort of like you were born as an individual. So why would you be dissolved into some plasma that would just dissipate into the universe? That's pointless, So
I'm gonna be right back. This is the mouse. If you wanna see.
Oh yeah. Okay.
If you want to click on anything.
Okay. If you have any more of this, that would be great.
You want another beer?
Yeah.
I gotta go fetch him a beer. So see how I'm clicking on that?
Okay.
And then to hide, you click it again.
Okay, and it shows up over there.
And if you want to save it, you can do star. There's stars over here.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I've never had to learn how to do any of this.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll get you a beer.
Thank you.
All right, here.
All right, cool. Thank you.
What is it called? The helpmeet?
The helpmate or something like that.
Helpmeet?
Oops. Yeah.
What?
So, because I don't know what I'm
I
doing.
just unplugged my phone.
Uh-oh.
I'm good.
Okay, you're good. Okay.
I'll be right back. You're okay. You're good.
Yeah.
I'll take good care of you.
I won't panic. I'm good.
Don't panic.
I got my yarn and my things to protect me here, I'm good. Thinking of that Paul Simon song. I got my yarn and my crochet to protect me. So I'm going to look at a few comments here. I don't want to disconnect as far as like presenting a lot of material, but now I'm glad to see comments because Naomi Hales, listening to the chat last night, there's such a language to it. Once they can only understand each other, it's isolating. LRH was a smart cult creator. He was a genius. I give him credit. He was intelligent, but a lot of crazy leaders misused their intelligence, because he had gifts, he had intelligence, and he used it to trick people into believing in a false religion. That's not great, because he wasted a lot of people's time and lives. So that's not cool, but he was a smart guy. I'll give him that much. And with the whole sci-fi mindset and everything, I mean, I love Star Trek. When I was a kid, I grew up on Star Trek and all those things, and the brilliance of Gene Roddenberry and those guys. I love that stuff because he could see into the future. He had a vision. He wasn't trying to exploit or abuse anybody with it, which I appreciate, because he could create a heck of a lot of very interesting space sci-fi stuff that actually a lot of it's been either proven to be real or was already based on science. So anyway, so I'm into the science end of it. LRH kind of took it a different direction and converted it into a fake religion. So we got number 5 in letter A, Kobilth. Fast times change these days. Oh yeah, so things definitely do change, and it's almost like, yeah, every wave of technology brings more opportunities for exploiters. I mean, I'm not a tech guy. I want to learn how to use it for good, but my God, the amount of scamming and manipulative crap that happens over the phone and computers drives me nuts. But again, it's always a good and bad thing as tools that can be used for good or bad. Anhata is drinking raspberry lemon wine in a Mike Rinder SPTV wine tumbler. Oh, hey, that sounds awfully good. Raspberry lemon wine. Cool. I'm good with that. Drinking a brew. That's what I had in my fridge. Deviant Outcast. LRH never got the help that he needed, and he believed in his own sense of grandiose and lies. Oh, maybe Miscavige, yeah, definitely. He just seems like an ugly guy. LRH didn't give the help he needed. Well, he was crazy. He didn't want help. Like, people that don't want help want to stay crazy. And if it's working, if you're making enough money and enjoying your life, then why not be crazy? It's working. There's no reason to change. Okay, new comments. I've got to navigate this. All right. I will try to hit on you guys now. I need to go get a drink. LOL. Okay. Number 5 in letter A caved in on the drink program. Yeah, Miscavige definitely is sadistic. Yeah, people that like beating on other people and making them suffer. I mean, they're unloading what's in them. And obviously, I don't think he's a very happy guy if he's unloading violence on other people. It's not an indication that he's doing super well. And unfortunately, I take a perverse pleasure in thinking that maybe what we're doing is causing him a little grief, honestly. Because the whole idea is, to me, anybody out there that's making other people suffer for their own benefit needs to get shut down. There's just no excuse for that. So, and control, like, that's one thing. Again, I was like, I don't know why this is part of my makeup, but I hate oppression and control. And we've studied like North Korea and all those kind of guys, Kim Jong-un and all those generations of people deliberately bred just to oppress other people. I hate that. I really do. I hate that shit. That's why I hate cults, and I hate people using psychology and manipulation and all this type of stuff to oppress and control others. Like, maybe I'm a rebel at heart, but being controlled by other people, I don't mind negotiating for things. That's reasonable. Making agreements with people and what have you, but trying to force your will on other people against their will, to me, is just the essence of evil. So it's not cool. And, sucking people into deceptions essentially is, it's an evil thing. Deviant Outcast. He kidnapped his infant daughter when wife number 2 wanted a divorce, and he told his wife he'd thrown the girl in the river, only to call back and say, "And what the fuck?" That's sadistic. I mean, there's people today. I mean, I hear about it all the time, and they're doing things like that. I don't really know what's wrong with them. You just hope anyone that can be reached can be, but yeah, all this forced abortion stuff. I mean, I can't believe, it still appalls me that Scientology was able to get people to accept the idea their kids and their family don't matter, and that, who are they serving? Like, people have been asked to do crazy things to serve an actual God, or what appears to be an actual God, but for no good reason, just doing really messed up things. Doesn't make sense at all.
Here's your beer, sir.
Oh, thank you. Oh, this one might require. Oh, you opened it. Thank
No,
you.
I opened it for you.
You know, nothing's worse than somebody handing you a beer, walking away, and then you realize it required an opener, and you don't have one. That's a problem.
I got you covered.
Yep. We're good.
I know the drill. So we will have been married 26 years this coming Wednesday. So
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still
So
hanging in there. We
we're-
survived everything we've been through up to this point. So
yeah,
it's all
we got
good.
it. So far we have a 100% survival rate, I guess.
Yeah.
We're going away on Sunday, but bringing this whole operation with us. So he'll be jerry rigging the microphone to something, up at the lake in the cottage.
Well, I actually modified an old camera tripod that I can screw this mic onto now. I came up with the right nuts and bolts and a roll of duct tape, so it's all good.
Roll of duct tape.
We have
He's gotta
our
have-
internet up
He's
there,
got to have
so-
projects even on vacation, or else he's not happy.
Yeah, so we're gonna I'll take some video that we can figure out. I don't know how to present anything yet. I feel very ignorant about this whole YouTube thing, but I've seen
Yeah.
Clearwater Chad's put out some videos of his travels, and I'm like, we're gonna be up in our happy place. We're gonna get over to
Yeah.
the beach, so I'm gonna take some videos. We're gonna find a way to get a few of them on here just to share.
You are handy, yep. He wears, I don't know if anyone here is from Canada or knows about, I know that I'm pretty sure Denver Steve has heard of Red Green. His favorite shirt is this t-shirt with red green on it.
Yeah, I almost
And
wore it tonight.
It
But
says if the women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy. So good thing you're both, and you're smart too.
no, thank you.
Even though I was worried about him last week because he was like sneaking up to bears and taking pictures and setting things on fires and
Doing normal redneck things.
normal things in the holler.
Yep.
Number 5 in letter A. Me and my husband just made 8 years. Happy
Nice.
anniversary.
Very cool.
Aw, newlyweds. Yeah. Congratulations. We have a few start things still. This was a while ago, but I wanted to save it because it looks really good. Juliana says, Andrew Huberman explains a lot of human behavior and feelings through science-based neuroscience. Can't recommend him enough. Andrew Huberman.
I'll have to look into that because I'm honestly, I'll give a quick little background story. Like one reason I have a real interest in psychology and that and the like. When I was a kid, I had an older brother who's 2 years older. And
You still have an older brother.
Yeah, I still do.
When I was a kiddie.
Yeah, no.
Sorry. Go ahead, honey.
But anyway, so he was diagnosed as a young kid as paranoid schizophrenic, and he'd had actually a birth injury, a brain injury, and it really did screw him up. So when I was growing up as a young kid and a teenager and everything, he didn't socialize or relate well to people, and the world was sort of a hostile place, and he got bullied, and he went through years of threatening suicide and going in an institution. So that made me think a lot when I was a kid, like, it made the world seem like an ugly, scary place. And I wanted answers. I really felt like that was something that drove me to seek God, to seek answers, to seek understanding. So I almost became a psych major. I ended up doing other things, but it never totally left me. Like there's still a fascination. Like I really want to dig down and learn more about how the mind works and the emotions work. So this little study was interesting to me in this way. I felt like I just scratched the surface, and I felt like I needed to present it before I went on overload and lost the ability to keep it simple, because there's a million little asides you can go on when you start digging into this. Because I mean, the whole medical, the whole profession of psychology and psychiatry is I wouldn't call it a rabbit hole, but it's a really big undertaking. So I'm like, well, if I can touch on this and then read some other people's teachings and learn more, I'm always open to learning more. It's a good thing because in a way, to me, it's all protection against cult abuse and control. Critical thinking is the key to maintaining your independence from mind control and all this kind of stuff. So definitely something to look into.
Mandy Gonzalez says, Marilyn, you should have Anhata on your cult series. Yeah, Anhata, we should definitely talk. I have quite a few cults I want to do that I have lined up, but definitely, is it 3HO cult? Let's talk. I would love to have you on for that. That would be great.
Cool.
Yeah, there's so many, aren't there? There's just so many. Electric Boogaloo. Yes, my church is a Catholic one. They would be kind and happy to welcome you in, no matter your faith. Happy for you to come and go. Yep, that's healthy.
Yeah.
That's definitely not the type of thing that we're trying to expose and talk about as far as things to look out for, because there are a lot of churches that most churches aren't like this, aren't destructive. They're not exclusive. They're not controlling. So, but there are enough that are. So we want to.
Yeah, we got to
sure
keep our eyes open.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you a tiny little side story just because it's relevant and it's immediate. Is I do some real estate in southern Vermont here where I live, and I help people find houses and land and sell houses and land. And I actually ran into this couple that are pastors in a fairly close by church, and they're some of the nicest people I've ever met. And they're hands on, and they help their people out, like literally just jump in the truck, go buy furniture, do whatever. They helped me get two families hooked up with houses in the local area, and everything went super smoothly, like beyond what I would consider reasonably expected. And these deals flew through, and these people got these places. They were just right for them for not an excessive amount of money, and they helped them move in, and they were right there in the trenches with them. And I'm like, man, this is what the real church should be like. People helping people, hands-on, real time, not arrogant, puffed up, expecting to be driving around in a new Land Rover or something. These people were like real people, not wealthy themselves, but willing to help other people. And that's cool. That kind of people I believe in. They're just great people, and you just had a good vibe from them. So they're totally not cult people. They're the kind of people that are not like a cult leader's a narcissist. They're out for themselves deep down. And eventually, like that thing said, they can't help but expose their own narcissistic behavior. They'll start out acting nice, but they can't hold it up. And I'm like, yeah, all these cults, eventually these people crumble. They get crazy, they go off the rails, and they blow up. And meanwhile, people that actually are good leaders that are charismatic's not bad if it's genuine. So I'm like, yeah, there's two kinds of things: destructive cults with a narcissist at the core, or genuinely charismatic leaders that really are in it for the right motives. They want to help people, and they're doing good things for people. And I think, hey, it's night and day. They're not destructive cults. These people are actually out to help people, and it doesn't mean they're 100% right about everything they say or do, but their general motivation is to do right and to love people. So more power to them.
You accidentally timed out somebody, or I did. So
Oh, no.
Whoever we accidentally timed out, we didn't mean to. I don't know what happened. We were like clicking. I don't know if I did it or you did it, honey.
Yeah, I didn't click on anything deliberately. Maybe
it could have been
wrong.
Me. Yeah. If we accidentally timed out somebody, we are really sorry. We didn't mean it. Juliana just told me. I was like, no. Oh, oops. God. I don't know how to undo it.
We'll figure it out.
I'll wait for her. Oh, boy. Let's see. On Hata, my mom's cult later would put people on highly restricted diets to make them compliant. My mom grew very thin and frail. Yeah, we went through that.
Yeah, we saw that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Overemphasis on fasting and all that, which can be used. Like one thing, I think it was Ranieri, the whole idea of this constant emphasis on diet and losing weight. It was always about losing weight. These girls are walking around like they look like toothpicks. 500
calories a day.
It was screwed up. I don't care who you are. It was really screwed up. And that to me, that's not any kind of spiritual development there. You just, he had an obsession with women being like thin as a rail, which I don't get, but they, of course, people fall for that stuff. So he sucked a lot of people into doing that. Diana, Duchess of Chug.
Duchess of Chug.
Okay.
I guess if you have been taught having some feelings are bad, then you could mix up the reality of emotional feelings, and there's the rat who takes advantage of the situation. Yeah, definitely. That's a whole ball of wax there, because when a cult leader will basically put you under this vice of your your feelings aren't valid, or usually they'll say like, don't don't think, just believe, or
Yeah,
look, don't think is what
yeah,
LRH
just
would
trying to
say.
shut people
Yeah,
down.
yeah. So it shuts down your mind and your emotions and your will, which is basically your, what they call the soul, right? Things that motivate you and that make you who you are, your personality. So yeah, if you can um, invalidate someone's feelings or someone's thoughts and someone's emotions, then you kind of have them, eating out of your hand, which is super bad.
Yeah, let me speak to that while we're on that subject, because I think part of the Ranieri thing, and I've seen this in a lot of cases, like what I did, this little study was touching on the emotional, the neurotransmitters or hormones that deal with emotions specifically. So that's oversimplifying this and leaving out some heavy other things that are very related, like this whole idea of like cognitive dissonance and the rational mind. Because I didn't touch the rational mind of this study at all, because the rational mind is what'll you'll run into this cognitive dissonance problem, which is simply like when what's going on is clashing with what you're told or what you're supposed to think, and what your emotions are telling you. Like when you suddenly have that gut feeling something's really wrong, and now you're being pressurized into trying to suppress it. Like like if you know something's wrong and then you're experiencing cognitive dissonance, like in your mind you're feeling tension, you're feeling wrong, something's just not right here, and then you're being pressed to just ignore this. Like Ranieri did this with people and put them in this terrible, I forget what they called it, it was some sort of women's group, basically trying to make them think that they were the inner circle that were serving him, and they were really just being exploited and abused. And yet when the cognitive dissonance rises up, you're supposed to just suppress it and put it down, and it's not right, and you're experiencing all this dissonance, and it's like, no, you have to overcome this, you have to override how you feel. And it's completely screwed up because you're being forced against your own nature, like the very emotional things in you that are trying to defend you, you're being asked to destroy them and shut them down and ignore them, which is so screwed up, because that's how you drive people crazy. Like people were basically being driven insane and brainwashed. And the whole passivity, like passivity is one way out. Like one is just like, well, you have to make, like he appealed to this idea, well, you have to be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. And that's a thing
Yeah.
that's sort of like a Christian thing. So
Yeah.
it's very much used in a lot of religions and cults. It's like, well, if you're really devoted and
Mm-hmm.
you really trust whoever your leader is, are you willing to lay your life down? Are you willing to throw away your life totally and trust this person with your future and give up everything for them in this total surrender? And it's like, to be perfectly honest with you, I would have to trust you a ridiculous amount to, like, it's, you build trust, you know what I mean? I feel like trust is something you earn, you don't demand it from people. If somebody starts trying to demand trust from you, there's something to run from, because if you really have a close friend and you trust them, you might give up a kidney or something and lay in a hospital bed and risk your life for them. Or you might even, if it's your own kid about to get hit by a train, you're going to jump on the tracks, throw that kid off the tracks and get run over, because that's what's built into you. That's the right thing to do, and you know it. But when you have some screwed up, cult leader demanding you give up your life for them or sign a billion-year contract for them, or endure pain, like Ranieri had literally had these women getting branded as a hot iron and enduring it. And I get, like, okay, I pledged a fraternity when I was in college, and we had to do some gnarly stuff, nothing that extreme, but I could see the mentality. It was almost like, well, if you're in the inner circle, you got to pay a price. You got to be willing to be hazed and abused and go through some heavy shit. But then later you can brag about it, like, yeah, I toughed this out. I did it. Well, yeah, you did it, but it doesn't mean it was a good thing to have done. Because I mean, people give in to doing some extreme stuff because they think it's appealing to some kind of honor code or some bravado type thing to go through some really extreme experience. And like, if you're going to give your life over to the master, like that whole idea of total surrender is like, I don't know, I'm not that trusting a person. I don't want to lose my identity as a person. I don't want to give up all my options and my future to somebody else's judgment. I think that's too much, you know. It's just too much, and it's irreversible. Like if you don't have enough of a survival instinct to say no to things like that, who knows what's going to happen? I'm not like even. I'll be honest. Like under hypnosis, I have been in the presence of hypnotists or getting people to just submit to them and become totally passive. I could never totally do it. I couldn't. I freaked out. I'm like, I'm not letting this person into my inner mind to get access to me, to my inner. I'm not going to yield up 100%. I'm not giving them the key to my inner being or my life. I'm not willing to do that. I never did. And I don't think I ever will. I couldn't. It's like, I don't know anyone that I would trust that well to do that. I'd rather go to the eternity knowing that I never did that than have caved in that completely to somebody.
Yeah. I was thinking like taken to the extreme. That's why so many cults have become basically, unalive cults. Yeah. You unalive yourself because it just basically will give you the feeling like there's no thought for yourself. Like when we talked with Vanessa about the cult Heaven's Gate. Of course, it was over a series of many, many years, but it was almost like this self-loathing thing, and the whole group think, and the no thought for yourself and no thought for your earthly body, because even in Scientology, they believe that you're, just a meat body and the Thetan is what lives forever. So you can just decide to drop your body, and it's no big deal because you're just going to go on to another one. Well, what if that's not true?
Yeah, how about it? You're gambling. You're putting everything on something that may not even be right and may not happen. So,
yeah. Deviant Outcast said, I agree with Duncan. I'm the same. There's always a part of me that's aware and there, even when immobilized. Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. I don't really like to. I like to drink, but I don't like to do anything like cannabis or mushrooms or any of the other harder drugs. Just because I've had enough weird experience. Like my mind goes to strange places as it is. I don't want to do that kind of stuff, and I like to kind of have control over my thoughts. So it just doesn't do it for me. It's not something that I like to partake in. I'm not criticizing anyone else, but that's just not my thing. And Hata said, there we go. Yogi Bhajan would say, I'm the master. I will do the thinking for you. Yep.
Oh, how kind of you.
I know. Yep.
No, thank you. That's my privilege to do that.
I know. Marlene would be like, oh, go seek the Lord, seek his will. Well, I didn't know what God's will was, but Marlene did. Of course. Of course she did.
Crazy. Yep. Oh, Deviant Outcast is saying, as Hubbard said, never trust a hypnotist. Remember, Hubbard was a hypnotist.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A thief knows a thief, right? Takes one to know one. Yeah. Anhata asks, have you guys heard about the doomsday cult in Africa? They found mass graves of over 600 people.
Oh, I think was that
missing.
Pretty recent? I read a thing about that not
super long ago.
Yeah, I didn't read it. Terrible. I don't remember a lot about it, but that sounds utterly horrible.
Yeah, that's awful.
I assume that meant doomsday cult, not doomsteak, unless that steak was really bad.
So, I was Googling doomsteak.
I won't buy that if I can avoid
it. That's pretty much. I'm terrible. Like I kill meat. So whenever I try to make a steak or something, I'm like, you need to take over because I'm gonna kill it. So that would be my doomsteak. Juliana. I bet he made this sound wonderful, like a big sacrifice you should be thankful for. Yeah. Even in the Julie, I think it was you that said you hadn't seen Holy Hell yet. It's on. We watched it on YouTube.
Yeah,
for free.
Yeah. There's a free version. It shows up, and then you scroll past it. There's another version of it. That was a little weird because I noticed with YouTube they had to literally blot out all the actually recorded music
Yeah.
So the only music they basically allowed is elevator music that would happen in some parts of it. So when it
Yeah.
goes silent,
So
you
there were
just
some
have to
silent parts, but
ignore it.
I got the major.
Yeah, the rest of it got
things.
through all right.
Yeah. It's supposed to be about the African doomsday cult. DOPAMINE Outcast, that was only a couple months ago, maybe half a year,
I remember
12 months.
hearing
I have
about
no
that.
concept.
Yeah.
It was recently. That's just.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't watch it yet, but we saw a thing popping up when we were like on YouTube or whatever about 20 active and current cults that are pretty mainstream or big.
Scientology
and
was one of them.
We're meaning to watch that. Yeah, I'm sure Scientology is one of them. But the idea, like, I'm utterly appalled when I think about it that all the information that is out about Scientology and they're still going. It's unbelievable. Like, if anybody, and like, I feel like all these people need to be held accountable and held culpable. Like, I feel like we should say, listen, you guys are culpable. You're letting this shit continue. It's been continuing for years. You're taking taxpayers' money and allowing these corrupt criminals to continue to bilk money out of people and avoid paying taxes and do all this stuff they're doing, and you're allowing this. You guys are responsible. You should be lumped in there with them. You know, it's just utterly, completely wrong. But I think there's a lot of people, you know, like anybody that's in law enforcement shouldn't be a coward. It's just a wrong job to be in if you're not willing to pursue things. And I get there's a lot of corruption and everything, and people are afraid to do what they're supposed to do because of people that'll clamp down on them if they do. But, you know, again, what's this world coming to?
DOPAMINE Outcast. Anyway, doomsday. Isn't that what Trump was selling?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Totally.
Bozo. Speak of bozos. Speak of narcissistic bozos.
All right, let's not get political.
Oh yeah, I'm not supposed to be political.
Let's get political. Yeah. Well, everybody has their opinion, but yeah, I think this was a really good timing for this, because we're talking with Kelly tomorrow about
the holy
hell call and the love bombing and just the feel good, feelings and hormones, and he led those people.
It's
totally
mad.
astray.
It illustrates so much.
Yeah.
But again, it's just showing the same principle of a narcissist hidden behind this fake charismatic exterior, and ultimately kind of like Miscavige, like we were talking earlier today. This guy had his own shtick with things, and he was an actor.
Yeah.
And he was way into ballet and stuff like this. And that became ultimately his fulfillment, is to convert his cult into supporting his ballet and or acting and what have you fantasies. Well, immediately in my mind, I'm like, you know what? This is Miscavige with his buildings, like bilking money out of people so he can fulfill his fantasies of having all these ideal orgs built all over the world, these beautiful big buildings that can accommodate thousands of people. And guess what? They're empty. It's a fantasy. Yeah. He's just pretending and acting out this fantasy that's not realistic and will never happen, because he still believes that somehow maybe it could or would. So he's giving his life to try to make this happen, sucking tons of money out of people to make it happen, and it never will. I'm like, you know what? Another crazy guy that's on a mission that's never going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I hope you tune in with Marilyn and Kelly tomorrow and see this thing, because it's crazy. And yeah, we just saw it, and it's real, and it represents so many other cults, operates by this same playbook. So anyway, are we getting ready to tie this up?
Yeah, let's I'll go through a couple of more comments. There's a few things that came in. DOPAMINE Outcast calling out malevolent wolves that threaten people's safety isn't political. It's making sure you and your fellow men, women, and children are safe, just as calling out Scientology isn't religious hate. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
The actions speak a lot louder than words. And yeah, I mean, you don't have to twist our arm to say that Trump's actions have been pretty bad. But, like I said, this is a different arena as far as we're not really trying to get political. But yeah, I mean, you're right. What is that saying that says, it's something like all it takes for evil to succeed or to flourish is for good men to do nothing.
Yeah, sit there and just let it happen.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Oh, Naomi, you're back. I'm so sorry. Did you get timeout? Timeouted? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. We're new at this. We have no idea what we're doing. His fantasy is TC's butt crack. Trying to be an oh no. I didn't even I just clicked on it because I felt bad that you got timeout, but we won't time you out for that one either. We won't time you out for that one. I just clicked on you because I saw your name. Juliana, now I hope to have Wi-Fi again, yay, tomorrow, and hopefully be on the screen on Monday, yippee. Maybe not enjoying being backstage. It's totally up to you, but we love you. Either way.
Well, thanks all for attending. We really appreciate it. We knew we weren't getting a lot of people on a busy night that has
there's been one stream after another. But
yeah, you know,
so glad.
we're glad we got the opportunity to hang out with you guys that were here, and maybe a few people will watch this later and have a comment or two to make about it. But I'll threaten you with this: we'll be back.
We'll be back, and Kelly and Chad and I will be on tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern, and that'll be really fun. So yes, everybody have a great night, and we'll see you very soon.
Take care.
Take care.